Help us with prayer.
Thank you for the prayer.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Lord, forgive Otho for just showing his rear end, Lord, and we just ask you to intercede with us on our meeting tonight, and that we can go through this information wisely and diligently and do what's best for our citizens as well as the money it's going to generate to support our children. We just ask you to be with us as we govern tonight, and Lord, we just want to praise you and thank you for all that you allow us to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to move directly into closed session.
I make a motion, we move into executive session where action will be taken.
Okay, second.
Second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign, and we will approve the agenda when we return. What'd you say? Wild, crazy guy. I would entertain a motion to come back into open session.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. We will.
Got to approve the agenda.
Yes. I would entertain a motion now to approve the agenda for the next meeting.
So moved.
Second,
I second it.
any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. It's yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're here this evening at a special call meeting to consider the resolution for calling for a special purpose local option educational sales tax referendum. I want to take a moment to walk through a presentation that will give some context about how we got to where we are. And so we're going to walk through that right now, and then we will get to the language of the resolution in just a few minutes. As we're going through the presentation, if at any time any members of the board have questions, please just interrupt as we go forward. So a few things about pre-work that we have done to get to this moment. When you get ready for eSPLOS, when you get ready for setting budgets, there's a responsibility for, first and foremost, to have a clear vision about where we want learning to occur, how we want learning to occur, and why we exist as a school district. As you know, we spent the spring identifying what that looks like through our Portrait of the Graduate work, and we are in the midst of translating that work to a strategic plan. But we went out and talked to our community about what do they want for our kids, what are the opportunities that they want for our kids, where are the places where we are excelling, and where are the places that we're falling short. That Portrait of the Graduate is our North Star, and has helped us to be able to identify what are those durable skills that kids need when they graduate, and how are we doing the things that we need to do to prepare them. That North Star needs to be what helps us, to make any decisions about how we allocate resources moving forward, both when it comes to the building of buildings and learning facilities, but also curriculum, staff, and any other kind of ways that we allocate resources. So appreciate the board's work on that. Just to be clear, that is guiding all of these decisions as we walk through that. The next responsibility we have is to look at growth and what is student growth going to look like for our school district as we go forward. Many districts use eSPLOS dollars to handle and manage growth, to think about building new buildings and what that might look like for themselves. Excuse me. And so we have been working hard to identify what does demographic growth look like for us as a district. If you drive around Greene County, it feels like there is a lot of growth going on, whether it's the expansion of 44 or any of the building that you see happening. But what we know is that we don't have very many housing starts compared to what it feels like that we have. And so why is that important? Because as a school system, we are not responsible for having good roads. I know you guys are thankful for that. We're responsible for educating the kids. And so we have to look at who is going to be coming. As we looked at that, we worked with our county commissioners and have been working very closely with our new county manager and our county commissioners, and really appreciate their help and support in identifying some of the future needs that we have. Worked with the Carl Vincent Institute to look at some forecasting. And then we have some friends from Raymond James who have also done some work with us on what does our sales tax digest look like as we go forward. And so taking all of those things into consideration, we anticipate at this time that over the next decade, we will grow in student population by about 500 students. So what does that mean? It means that we are not going to have 500 kids show up on August 1st and say, hey, we're ready for school that we didn't know about. That's 500 kids over the entirety of the next decade. And so that means that our current facilities have enough space for all of those kids. if they were to show up. Either our current facility or our growth plan that we already have in place covers that. That means we don't have to build new buildings just for student classrooms. That is a great place to be as a school board because it means you can make some choices instead of just thinking about how do we build new buildings. And I share that. I have a little PTSD from my time in Henry County. We were growing so rapidly, we never even had a conversation about East Bluffs because it was always about building new buildings because kids just kept coming. You know, we built 28 schools over the course of the 2 decades that I was there. And so it's a great place to be where that's not our primary focus. So we have that. The next thing that we have a responsibility to do is to make sure that our current maintenance needs and our current facilities are up to snuff for our kids, that they are serving our kids in meaningful ways. And so we did this spring, had an outside vendor come in and do a facility condition assessment of all of our buildings and facilities, inclusive of LOA's facilities and Greene County's traditional facilities, including Union Point, including the transportation building, this central office building. And said, what is the facility condition for those buildings? In that report, what they shared with us is if we were to choose to fix every single thing that comes up over the next 10 years, it would cost us somewhere between 15 and $18 million. That was extending beyond just the window of what this current East Bluffs might have, but for the next decade. And underneath that 15 to $18 million, it is about what would we need to do to make sure our buildings are in good shape. Those are things like understanding that Anita White Carson is about 25 years old, and roofs, then you put them on, last about 25 years. And so we should be paying attention to that roof. But we do also have choices. If that roof is in good condition, we don't need to replace it just because, but we could if we wanted to. And so what we know going forward is our maintenance and facilities have done a great job ensuring that our buildings are in really, really good condition. Our mechanical systems are in great condition. If there's anything that we need to do, most of it is cosmetic. And so we have choices about that instead of actually being forced to do it. Additionally, for example, at Anita White Carson Middle School, the air conditioning units are going to need some help and support. There are 3 different types of units there. We can make choices about how we fix those. You've already made the decision at the high school to replace all of the HVAC system this summer. We would not necessarily need to do that at Carson, right? Because they have, for example, some window units in some places. We could manage through it by saying when one of those goes out, we replace the unit, or we could choose to say rip it all out and start over. Replacing one unit, $10,000, $15,000. Ripping it all out and starting over, $3.5 million. You can make any purchase in between those however you see fit because we are in a good space. So just that's the kind of discussion that we've been doing, really analyzing what are the needs that are out there. One of the primary needs that came up in that facility and condition assessment was the condition of the modular buildings that currently constitute the middle school at Lake Oconee Academy, and identified those as the one area where we have students in there daily that might need a little bit of an upgrade compared to what all of our other educational facilities look like. So that was a part of all of this discussion. The last thing that we need to think about is what is our timeline for when we're going to hit our maximum collections on our East Bluffs, and being aware that we quickly. This is here for any members of the public that really want to be thoughtful about what we have thought about, that they have the same information that we have in the spirit of transparency. But really just a little bit of our sales tax history. This is our East Bluffs collections since they started back in 1998. Those of you who have been here since then can probably remember what $500,000 worth of East Bluffs tax digest looks like as you drove around versus the almost 9.2 million that we're collecting today. You might feel that in the traffic. You might feel that in the options that you have to purchase things. You can see here in 2013, this is where the SPLOST was not continued, and there was a gap in those collections. So one of the things that we'd like to not repeat if at all possible. But you can see there's been continued growth in our sales tax as we go forward. This just puts more detail into what that graphic shows. The thing that I would love to highlight for you here is looking at the annual growth rate. And you can see it's a little bit all over the place. And so as we look at that, it's important for us to be really thoughtful about what are the places where we feel like it's safe for us to anticipate what that growth will look like. We are probably not going to go up 25% in a year, and we're probably not going to drop by 0.3% in a year. It's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of that. But it's important for us to look at the trends in the data over time to make an informed decision as we move forward. So bring you to that. Let you know we've been averaging about $8.5 million over the first 2 years of this. This year we're at 9.2, so we're already seeing some growth in our tax digest as we go forward. All of this helps us to project when we think we're going to hit the maximum of our collections. You can see right now, it looks like we'll be as early as 2 quarters, maybe even 3 if things continue to roll, which is why we have the sense of urgency on why we need to do the continuation at this point in time in 26 instead of waiting until 27. As you know, our cap is 39 million in this East Lost as we go forward. So that's the sense of urgency at this point in time. If we look at projections of what we anticipate could happen, as we think about what we set the cap for our next eSplost, this chart here on the side, it talks about what our growth is. If we assume 0% growth and we continue where we are, we would be at $46 million. If we assume 8% growth, we would be at about $65 million. When you look at the previous slide, you know, we were somewhere between 25 and 3. So this is an educated guesstimate that we are responsible for as the board for making. So our friends from Raymond James aren't going to say, here's where you need to go. They're going to say, if you do this, you got to think about this. If you do this, you got to think about this. And so they've informed us of what those are. For everyone's general knowledge, whatever we set the cap at is the limit with which we can collect. It does not mean that we will have to get to that cap. And as long as we are responsible in how we spend that money, we can have that cap anywhere that we want to do so. But whatever we put the cap at, we can't go over it. So as we're making the decision about where we put that cap, it makes more sense to shoot a little bit higher, knowing that you might not get there, than to shoot low and limiting what you have for the ability, especially in a district like Greene County, where so much of our eSplost dollars come from folks who don't live in Greene County. And so let's take advantage of making sure we can maximize the dollars that we're getting from folks who are visiting us as a part of our tourism industry and a part of the lake community to be able to support our schools. Allows us to think about our general budget a little bit differently because of the eSplost that we bring in. So just bring that to everyone's attention as we go forward. This is just our debt service. And as you guys are aware, we publish this debt service every single month. Connie and her team, everybody can track all of this every single month. Very transparent about what this is, so this comes to no surprise. I do want to highlight that on our current Series 2009 debt service, this is money that we are paying for LOA and the debt service that is left for LOA, knowing that this is the original buildings on the Economic Development Authority property space that we will take full ownership of at the payment of this final payment. So those are buildings that we are responsible for. That becomes important when we talk about the middle school building and the trailers that are there, the modulars buildings. Those are our buildings for the Board of Ed, not owned by the foundation. And so that's why it becomes something that we need to think about when we look at that total plan for how we are paying attention. The Series 23 is the debt service primarily for the new elementary school. So you can.
That's 2029. It's gone now.
That's correct. That's correct. So you can see that in there. This is just a graphical representation of that. And so we won't need to spend too much time with that. Next part, just a little bit of education about when we call referendums for these votes and why, and some of the rules that are here. I'm not going to belabor all of these because you can read through them, but you can see these are the dates that we have available to us. November of this year, March of next year, and November of the following year for 27 in order to continue this. A couple of things to consider when we put the referendum out. In the event that the referendum does not pass, you have 1 year that you have to wait before you can put that referendum back out before the people again. So if we were to wait until March for this vote, instead of doing it in November, should it not pass, we would not be able to complete it prior to the time that we anticipate that the collections are going to stop. And so this gives us enough opportunity to be able to say, okay, the community will support us. We believe strongly the community will support us. Those have been the indications previously. But that's part of the calculation about why we would do it this November instead of waiting. It also allows us to begin some of the projects that are on here a little bit more quickly than if we wait another year. So that's also helpful as we go forward. So this is just another way for us to be able to look at that with the idea about when we would hit that SPOS cap there and making sure we do it. And then this is just the deadlines. Why do we have to have the special called meeting tonight? We have an obligation to make sure that we are publishing what we would be doing with the SPOS in the paper 90 days before the election. And so that's why we're doing this. One of the things I want to lift up is one of the things the board charged me with is working really hard to create some alignment across the community as we move forward and really serving as a place to do this. I want to say thank you to our Board of Elections, who is also having a special called meeting to make sure that we hit this timeline. So that is an example of how municipal, county, and school board governance is really working hand in hand to be thoughtful about what we can do that'll better the community. So those are small things, but a special called meeting is not just a small thing, and their willingness to do that, along with our willingness to do that, just shows that we're trying to work together as the governing boards in the county to help serve the entire county. Any questions about all of that?
Going back to I'm sorry, going back to the East Boss Cap.
Yes.
Recently, I think I've been around, I think, for 2 of them now, and I think we capped out significantly early on both of them.
Mhm.
Is there a reason or a negative in actually escalating that cap a little bit more? Is there a negative if we don't meet that? Or
Right.
but is it positive if we do meet it
Yeah.
and escalating it more?
There is no negative to not having it higher. It is really a question of what we feel like our community wants to support, right? And so if we cap it, for example, you saw there at 8% would be about $65 million. It's just a matter of us saying to our community, what do we believe that you'll be willing to support as we go forward? So let's say that we were to add to that, put it a little bit higher. There's really no downside from the referendum or from the expenditures, particularly when we think about what we might do with bonds that are collected against that. If that's the part that we have to be most responsible, we want to make sure that we don't bond out more debt than we know we're going to be able to take in. So if we only bond out a more conservative amount, that leaves us able to pay that debt service really meaningfully. And then any additional collections, we would still be able to expend, but it just wouldn't be against the debt service. So as long as we're paying attention to what we bond out and feel comfortable about where that lands, then we can have it as high as we want after that, still be responsible with our taxpayer dollars.
So are there any additional acquisitions we can take advantage of that we haven't been taking advantage of historically?
I mean, there are some great, and I'm going to walk through in just a minute some of the things that we're thinking about for this next blast. So I think particularly one of the things we're going to reveal would benefit from even more, like why we would invest in the things that we're going to invest in. So we'll walk through that and we'll show you what that looks like as we go forward. So I just want to do one little short part of like what have we done with the SPOS money. So you just saw the collections. I think it's important for the district to be able to justify to the citizens what we've done. So we do have our 2019 eSplosh projects that we are finishing. If you look at this picture right here, that is hot off the presses. That is a picture that was taken this morning of the refurbished theater at the high school. So one thing to know is that that has been an empty shell for about 18 months now. Is that right, Mr. Ellenberg? About 18 months, no seats and nothing. It is ready to go. It seats about 325 students, allows us to do some things in there that have been there, but that's a 1980s era auditorium. It looks like to me what Bill and Ted's Adventure looks like when they're in that auditorium, but it is a beautiful facility. We've upgraded it. but it is 325 seats. But that's one of the things that we've invested in. We have the new ag greenhouse building that is being built right now, and we're also replacing the roof and the HVAC at the high school. So really making sure that our high school is the best possible facility that we can provide for our kids while honoring the legacy of that building. And so really making sure that it operates well. And we've already talked about debt payments. And then the miscellaneous equipment money is things like for our pathways at our college and career academy, making sure that we're providing kids with the right things to be able to move forward with that. An important thing to remember about East Bloss dollars is they have to go through a rule of thumb, to be clear, capital outlay or depreciable assets. So if it's not a depreciable asset, we can't spend East Bloss money on that. So we're not buying staff, we're not buying paper, we're not buying like generally things that we would have to cover under our general budget. This is for those items that are depreciable. So we can't just move this money around. It has to be targeted towards these capital outlay type projects. Our 2024 SPLOS, the shining jewel of that is Greene County Elementary School. And so we have spent the majority of that money on that. We still have a little bit of money coming in under that eSPLOST. So this year, for example, we have an opportunity to be able to ensure that our playground is accessible for every one of our students. So we have ADA compliant playgrounds right now. They meet the needs of the law. But we think we can do a little bit better by, for example, putting in some swings that would be accessible for our students in wheelchairs. So a little bit of money to go towards that. They're still compliant, but we think we can do a little bit better for that for those kids. And then, as you know, we added the bus ramp in the back. So thinking about what that bus ramp would look like. But I mentioned at the beginning, there are optional places where we can invest. So things like the playground and then in the door locks. We've discussed a couple times about adding additional security features by having our internal doors be badged in. That's something we could do. It's not something we have to do. So that's one of the choices that we would make as these come through with the different dollars. Those are some of the things we have on a project list there. At the middle school, I've already talked about opportunities around the roof and the floors and some of these other things. Most of these things at the middle school that you see on this list are not have to do's, they're nice to do's. If we did not touch the middle school at all, it would still be a very fine facility ready for kids with just maintenance, but also things that we could choose to do for not significant costs underneath our current SPLOS dollars. So those are some of the things we have in there. We've already talked a little bit about the high school, and kind of finishing out the new ag center that we have there, replacing exterior doors. That's already happening. And then I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to go into the gym, to the locker rooms that are connected to the gym, but they are also vintage 1980, and they need a little bit of upgrading as well. So working on some of that. All of this is in the SPLOS that we have already passed. These are dollars that you guys have already agreed to that we're already doing, but just to show this is how we're making the decisions about where we're making the student experience the best one that we possibly can. And then, of course, these are also hot off the presses. This is pictures of our new ag building that is being built down there. Beautiful greenhouse, classroom space, and engaging there. So that is going to be ready for school to open, and they've been hustling on it. So we're excited about that. Excited to add that. And then also, there's also dollars that are going to LOA currently. You know about the debt service from the 2009 series. They also are getting $2 million worth of money from the 2024 SPLOST. These are the things that they're spending the money on out there as well. So just know that the district is making choices about how to spend the eSPLOS money to ensure that we're giving kids and teachers the best space that we possibly can as we move forward. And then a little bit of updates here. You can see we have a new floor being put in and a little bit of refurbishment to make this a professional learning center to meet the needs of training our teachers and staff, converting it a little bit from when it was a pre-K cafeteria to making it feel more like a professional building. So those are some minor adjustments and changes as we go forward. And then always in our eSPLOST, it helps to support our technology initiatives. And you've had the opportunity to vote on some of these, but making sure our teachers have up-to-date laptops, our kids have up-to-date Chromebooks, and that all of our network is state-of-the-art and also protected with the right security. So security updates are also a part of these dollars as we go forward. So that's what we've been spending money on to date. And I think the benefit you see of that is the facilities report that we got from Design Tree said, you've done well maintaining the buildings in really intentional ways. So we are appreciative of that. We do have, I've already talked about the debt service. We also buy school buses with eSPLOST. that would be a continued purchase that we would do. As you know, we try to refurbish school buses somewhere between 3 and 5 every year. The life cycle of a bus is meant to be about 10 years. I don't know a single district that has every bus that's only 10 years old, but we try to stick to that as best we can, and have been doing a good job on that as we go forward. So that brings us to why we're here tonight and what might we do for our upcoming East Blast. And so you've seen what we've been doing and some of the ideas about what we did for pre-work as we move forward. So a few things that we've been thinking about that we have presented as ideas, and a lot of this has come out of the work that we did around the Portrait of the Graduate, listening to what the needs of the community are, also from our joint session that we had on May 8th between the Board of Governors from LOA and the Board of Ed, and then our individual assessments. So some of the things that we can make choices on is Title IX compliant sports facilities. One of the things that we don't have currently at the football field in that field house is an away locker room that would also serve as a women's locker room for our soccer and track teams, for example. So currently we have the field house facility for the home football team. By adding in some women's facilities for our soccer team or track team, that also creates an away space. Currently they utilize the gym and walk up the hill. We would like to change that so that we have women's facilities in place. You'll see there also a performing arts center, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But one of the things that I saw as we were listening to the community in my first year is we have invested in a world-class college and career academy. We have invested in world-class sports facilities. We have a beautiful stadium, beautiful baseball field, beautiful track. What we don't have is the opportunity for our kids to engage in the performing arts in meaningful ways. We don't have music, we don't have instruments, we don't have theater and fine arts in deep and meaningful ways, and we are missing out on an opportunity for our kids. That also, to a certain extent, reflects the community we're a part of. Greene County doesn't really have the thriving performing arts. We have Opus that is working hard on it. We have places like Festival Hall that create opportunities, but not to the same thriving opportunity that we could have. And our community is ready for it. And I've had parents, students, and also teachers who are saying, this is a need. How can we invest in things like orchestra, things like the performing arts? And so we can create a center that would be used for all of our schools, but also we have an opportunity because of the situation we find ourselves in, not needing to build new schools, to also make this a community center, not just a school center. And so it's something interesting for us to engage in, particularly as we think about how do we do this deeper engagement with other community entities like our county commissioners, the city of Greensboro, expanding the Archway partnership that we voted on at the last meeting, for example. A couple other things you see in there, things like outdoor classrooms, storage buildings. These are other things that we could be thoughtful about what we spent our money on. Thinking about renovating our media center to make sure that it's in the right place. At CMS also,
Where's T?
not here right now. The other thing, so this idea too is we have a primary obligation to make sure that our kids and our teachers have the best learning spaces available to them possible. We also, I believe, have an obligation to understand that these are community spaces. So yes, they are important for our schools first and foremost, but we only have kids in these buildings 180 days a year. There's a great opportunity for us to utilize these spaces in a community way a little bit better than we have. That would require some policy shifts for the board to consider, but also for us to think about how do we contribute not just to the education of our kids, but also be a picture of how a community can also rally around a community-based school experience. So the play field and the track at the middle school, it is kind of crumbling and decaying. We could protect our very nice football stadium and not leave that open to the public, but resurface this in a meaningful way and allow that to be open to the public. So imagine folks, doing laps in the evenings or whatever it might be. We can make that a community space, serves as our practice field, something for our PE classes to use during the day, and then something for our community to use as well. And it's a benefit that we can do. So it's those kind of thinking that we are engaging in as we do this. You can see some things are also wants at the high school that we could consider as we go forward. The other thing that we would do is make sure that we are utilizing any of our SPLOST money to support curriculum and instruction the best that we can within the bounds of the law. So expanding our language to make sure that we're utilizing these in the best ways. Being able to put that in our eSPLOST budget, again, opens up some flexibility in our general budget as we go forward. So I want to put that out there for you. And of course, we've already talked about school buses being a part of that. Every time I see this picture, I'm like, is that Miss Weaver? And then I'm like, no, it's not, as we go forward. But also just kind of making sure that we're doing some miscellaneous equipment in there as well. So the recommendation that we're going to be making as big projects in this East Blast is a performing arts and civic or convention center space, making sure that we're paying attention to those modulars at the LOA that we've identified as the one kind of set of classroom spaces that we know need some support, and then all of the other smaller projects that we saw in there. So that's what we're looking at. We have begun to form an East Blast committee that will help do some communications. But tonight is the first space where we approve the resolution and then begin to do the work of informing the community about what we might do with it. Are there any questions from the board? Oh yeah, also, when we say a performing arts center, we're not talking about, the theater at the high school. We're talking about a world-class place where, we can come and engage with the community in really meaningful ways. This picture here is not what the Performing Arts Center will look like. You can even see we left the typos on there so that you know that it's not the Conady Performing Arts Center. This is an AI generated image, just so that we can have a sense of what might this look like if we were to engage in something like this, because it's real easy for me to talk about it. It's a whole nother conversation when you say, is this the kind of thing that we want for our kids to be able to learn in, to be able to perform in, to be able to be really shining stars of our community? There you go. Any other questions from the board? Hearing no other questions, that yes, sir.
What do we want to look at the resolution?
Yep, I'm reading that right now. Having seen what we're going to think about for this, this is the language of the resolution. As you know, this second paragraph right here is the language that will be in the resolution that our voters will see primarily. There are two parts of this that I want to lift up. The first is the recommendation currently in this is for a $65 million cap. You've mentioned a question about whether that's where we want to stay. That's up for the board to decide and discuss. It would be our recommendation, depending on where you land with that, to keep the amount that we would want to be bonded out at the $50 million. That is the space by which we feel very comfortable that that is definitely going to come in. So this resolution offers two things to our voters. The first is the ability to go and bond out that $50 million. And the second is to collect the East Blast for the things that are in this paragraph that you see here. The rest of the resolution has language around what the 20-year debt service would look like and some of the other legal provisions that are in there. Have this out for anyone to consider as we go forward. But this paragraph here is the current proposal for what the resolution language would look like.
I would open, we don't have to have a motion to open this. We can go ahead and have discussion before we make a motion. So anything in the resolution or in the cap that anyone would like to bring up and discuss at this point in time?
In this first paragraph, I guess that's a one, acquiring.
Yes, it's a
constructing, and
Romanette.
equipping.
It's called a Romanette.
A Romanette.
There you go.
Well, Romanette high.
Yeah, there you go.
Just knowing, am I on the wrong one?
No, you're.
I'm on number 2.
Okay.
I'm 2 eyes. It talks about acquiring, constructing, equipping school buildings for Lake Oconee Academy and adding or removing, so forth. Knowing that they part of that campus is owned by, what am I trying to say? Foundation, and some of it is public. I'd like to change the first word.
Okay.
Acquiring. That sounds a little bit like we're going to take over the foundation or what. There could be 100 different ways to interpret that, but just maybe change acquiring to assisting with, and
Okay.
then leave the rest of it the same. Seems to be more palatable to me.
So take this acquiring word and put assisting with constructing and equipping school buildings for LOA.
Right.
Okay.
Anyone have any discussion about that? Any concerns, thoughts? Okay. Anything else?
in that paragraph? No.
As we go through it, the part on this page here, on page number 2, is the part where we discuss the caps. I know you brought that up. So the current cap is at $65 million in the resolution that we have there. So I know you had asked that question, Mr. Bayshore.
If we could, any comment from you folks about us looking? Yeah, I think with the way the community is growing and things, there may be more of a temptation out there to raise that capital to make sure we don't come up short. Are your thoughts?
The only thing we ever worry about is creating the expectation that you have $75 million, so long as the board and the public understand that that's an aspirational number, you know, that there's not necessarily going to do 75 million. I have to.
Well, I think by not raising the bond, I think we kind of go back and say, we're not sure it's going to be 75 million. So we're going to, if we would want to bond the project, we wouldn't get above the 50. And that seems to be, yeah.
You're bonding at a level that you can pay comfortably today.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think it's all.
Any comment?
It's becoming an issue with sticker shock. But
Right.
otherwise, it's a, I have to.
Okay. Any comment from any of the board members about that thought?
Do we have, I know we're coming in 2 to 3 quarters early on this one. What's that percentage, Connie? Can you tell us? What does that equate to?
You guys in terms of the growth rate,
No, I'm talking about what we're gonna,
Dollars.
dollar figure that we're gonna, if we were continue for the next 3 quarters collecting, as opposed to where we're having to cut off collection because we hit the
Yeah.
cap, where does that hit? Do you have an idea of a dollar amount?
now, one important thing is your new swap will start immediately upon that. Because the current swap needs to be capped. So once you, with the swap, the law says swap is received at the end of the calendar quarter in which you if you reached it in May, you collect 3%. The language in your new resolution says this swap shall begin at the earlier of a date certain or the current swap is in effect. So long as we have approved this one in time, it should be a single swap. So I don't want to create the thought that we're going to go without swap for a period of time. This swap is designed, so long as we have the election over, it will start. You're not necessarily missing a check.
Yep.
They're just going to be swap 7 instead of swap 6.
Okay.
It does. I think where I was actually looking for is if we had to continue on and it would be 2028 before 2027 before this came in, what are we leaving on the table?
Well, right
If
now,
this ran all the way out and a rough amount,
it's about 6 months of checks with 775,000 or so per month.
okay,
That's
4.2 million.
Yeah.
okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
It would
you have a number in mind?
Mhm.
I think there was only discussion 75.
75.
That's a little more aspiration than what we are. What we're looking at, that we're missing out on at this point, at 5 plus. And, considering growth, I don't think, going to an additional 10 beyond what we're actually putting in there is totally out of.
I feel
I think-
comfortable. I feel comfortable with that position too. Anyone else? Thank you. Yes, sir.
75 means about a 10%, very roughly 10% annual growth from now all the way to 2030. So just rough math, that's what you could accommodate.
Yep. And with what's going on in this county, that seems to be,
Retirement above?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We're not just,
Yeah, I heard there's a Kroger being built somewhere.
do they have good donuts?
I
Oh, this
just
is
heard that.
Does that, if we change that number to 75, does that change any of these other calculations in here?
Yes, we've looked at those, that math, we can make those adjustments.
Okay.
They'll make those
It's easy
adjustments.
math because it's $10 million difference.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Where
again,
it flows through, we're not hard to get.
and again, not changing the bond
Correct.
piece,
That's
the bond.
correct. Bond's
stick.
staying
Okay.
as is.
Yes, sir.
But it's, as long as you change it around there, what we can do.
Okay, any
So,
other
so
thoughts?
74.6325 would be harder. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I recommend we not.
All right.
All right, anything else in this resolution that anyone has to bring forward?
All right. So for my clarity, then, if there's nothing else, what you would like to do is under Romanet number 2 in the second paragraph, change the word acquiring to assisting with. And then on page number 2, section number 3, moving the such sales and use tax shall be levied and collected for the purpose of raising not more than 75 million instead of 65 million. And then whatever kind of adjustments need to be made because of that would be in the resolution that you'll be voting for.
Yes, I think, and would someone like to put that into a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution with the noted changes on the first paragraph, to item 2, as discussed, and on section 3, the 65 to 75 million as discussed.
And anything that caused to be changed in the
And
rest
yes,
of the document?
and
Because of
adjustment
those
to-
changes.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
okay. Everybody on the same page in terms of what we're doing? Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
Thank you so much for that. We will get working. We will get working on making sure that we have been clear with our community on what we're going to do as we move forward. There is no other business before the board this evening.
I would just like to thank everybody that's helped Dr. Schmuel pull this together so quickly. Our finance department, I'm sure everybody in his chain of command that has had something to do with this. Raymond James for the work that they've done. I've worked with you guys before. You always have been on top of things, and we appreciate you helping us out with this project. So, with that said, I would entertain a motion to dismiss this meeting. Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting dismissed.
We will see everybody.